Hi, this is Roger Smith with the True Blue Media, and today I have a great guest for you, Tony Kelly. He's a diabetes expert. Um, Please like, subscribe, and put a comment down. I want to, continue to give you good content. And without further ado, let me introduce you to my guest, Tony. How you doing?
I'm fine, Roger. Nice to meet your acquaintance and looking forward to our conversation on your show
Good.
today.
Good. Hey, so Tony, let me know about your early diagnosis. How how did your journey start? This is what I want to know, right from the start.
Right. Well, let me get the accent right out straight away so people don't get confused. I'm British born, Roger, like yourself. But at an early age, my parents sent me off to the land of their birth, Jamaica, a little district called Whitehall in the parish of St. Thomas, where I grew up with my grandaunt, granduncle, and my grandmother. Now, as a child growing up, Roger, I was very, what we would say in Jamaica, fast or nosy or inquisitive. And I would notice relatives of mine, starting from the top, some had strokes, some were blind, all the relatives, some had heart attacks, some had kidney failure. So they used to have to leave the country area to go onto the dialysis machine in the Kingston hospitals. And some had lower limb amputations, chopping off of toes and feet. And finally, some died prematurely, or what we in the Caribbean would say, gone too soon. And I would ask what's wrong with all of these relatives. You know, your 8, 9, 10-year-old boy in the household and others, children. And all they would tell me, Roger, is they have a touch of sugar, a touch of sugar. So they minimized or trivialized or downplayed this very, very serious medical condition, diabetes, by referring to it as a touch of sugar. They never called it diabetes in my day. But what happened then? I went on to high school, passed what we know as a common entrance exam, went on to high school, but then went on to micro teachers training college and taught in the Kingston high schools until I returned to England, Birmingham to be exact, where I've lived ever since in 1979. Now, you asked about, well, when did it all come about? 19 years ago, my wife noticed the four key symptoms that I might have type 2 diabetes. They are referred to as the four T's. T for tired, T for toilet, T for thirsty, and T for thinner. Tired, toilet, thirsty, thinner. And she kept on saying something's wrong with me because in the night, Roger, I was getting up, believe it or not, this is 19 years ago, 3 or 4 times in the night to go to in Britain, we say the loo. I presume you said the bathroom in the States or the toilet. But I was in denial, like most men, and I hasten to add, most men are in denial. At the first sign of an ache, a twitch, or a pain, women head a beeline to go and see their GP, their doctor. Men head to the rum bar, them go and play cricket, them go and play domino, they go on to watch the football game, and they're in denial. And I was in denial in that, like the ostrich, the largest bird on the planet, at the first sign of danger, the ostrich buries its head in the sand, hoping the problem will go away. So I was one of those men in denial, not owning up to that I had an issue. But deep down, I did know that something was wrong with me. And as I said, the tired, the toilet, the thirsty, and the thin are losing weight. So I went with a sample of urine before any breakfast one morning because I could take the nagging no more. And my wife says, yes, I was nagging you because she's heard me speak on television, radio, all over the place. And the doctor put a stick in, whatever it was, litmus paper, whatever, and in my urine, which I took before any breakfast that day, and she said there is sugar, what they used to call sugar, which is blood sugar or blood glucose, same thing, in your urine. And Roger, there shouldn't be any at all. But she said, for a definitive answer, I'm going to send off a sample of your actual blood from your arm to the lab, and it will come back telling me whether you have type 2 diabetes. And it did come back as an early Christmas present, this Christmas coming 20 years, that I have type 2 diabetes. But at the start of the interview, I mentioned that a lot of my relatives have it. So it runs in my family. In my case, it is hereditary. So it was almost certain that in the DNA, the genetics, the genes, the metabolism, I was going to inherit it. So I had a choice then, Roger, to either keep on eating 5, 6 tablespoons of rice and peas, which I loved, or make the behavioral or lifestyle changes. I want your viewers to understand the behavioral or lifestyle changes to keep the complications I alluded to at the very beginning of the interview at bay. And I've done that for 19 years, Roger, and have never, ever taken a tablet, a pill, a potion, any medication for this type 2 diabetes. And we'll come on to that later. And it's because of physical activity and diet that I have embraced and disciplined myself to do to avoid going down the route. Because believe you, Roger, in Jamaica, Whitehall, St. Thomas, I saw firsthand as a child growing up suffering of my relatives. And I thought, well, I have a wife, a daughter, and a son in law. I'm not prepared to go down that route if I can help it. So it's a matter of disciplining myself, being very focused, eating healthfully, doing physical activity. By the way, you will never hear me, I'll just explain, but you'll never hear me use the word exercise because exercise conjures up images. You want the person to go to a gym. So I say physical activity all the time. So over here in Britain, when I came back 1979, I went into, I wanted to go back into teaching, Roger, because that's my passion, my first love, teaching. And Mrs. Thatcher and her government at the time, 1979, said, oh no, you can't teach in Britain. You'd have to go and retrain for 4 years. And I thought, hang on, the education system in the Caribbean and in parts of Africa and Asia, it's far superior to what I see was happening in Britain. I wasn't prepared to give anybody the satisfaction of doing a 4 year degree course all over again. My wife, by the way, she did that. She went back to teacher training college here in Birmingham and taught in a school, primary school, for 25 years. But I diverted and went into the probation service and became a probation officer and later a senior probation officer. So I dealt with all the offenders, or whether we will call them criminals and what have you, over that period of time. And still was able to impart knowledge and experience to them and try and get them on the straight and narrow. Um, and then took early retirement. And my wife said to me, okay, you've been working for 30 years, you're now retired. Are you just going to sit at home and do nothing? Just prior to retirement, my boss at the time said, you've gone 14 years without a day off sick. There's going to be an event in Wolverhampton, a diabetes event. And I know you have diabetes because you tell me about it in regular monthly supervision. And they want a guest speaker. And they specifically wanted a black person. So she said to me, you've got the gift of the gab. You're articulate, you're eloquent, you can talk, you do all the quality, diversity, equity training within the probation service for all staff. I think you should go and tell them about your experiences and how you manage and control this medical condition, type 2. So I went to Wolverhampton, which at the time, 19 years ago, beg your pardon, 12 years ago now, 12 years ago, was the diabetes capital of Britain. It doesn't have that title anymore. Birmingham has. And I spoke from my heart passionately for 10 minutes without any notes, just stood up there and spoke to this assembled group in front of the mayor and others. And Diabetes UK, which is a well known charity here in Britain, voluntary organization charity, some representatives were there. And Shalene Sandu came over to me and she said, come over to Macedonia and help us. You really have a passion about you, a way about you, where people will listen to you. And she said, were you ever a teacher? And I said, yes. She said, I could tell. It's in your teaching background. So they trained me. And ever since then, this is what I've been doing out there as a volunteer. I don't get paid for doing this, but I'm passionate about getting the message across to anybody, African, Caribbean, Asian, South Asian, white working class people, about eating healthfully. Our health is our wealth. And if you have a healthy body, you'll have a healthy mind, and the physical health and the mental health go hand in hand. And that's my passion, and that's my drive and my determination. So, on average, I do 150 community events per year as a diabetes expert or a patient expert, going out there, gurdwaras, mosques, churches, synagogues, residential homes, office blocks, imploring, begging, and beseeching people. When I just started, people used to say to me, "Well, are you medically qualified?" And I said, "No, I'm a patient with my lived experience, my reality. I'm wanting to share that with you." And at first, some people were a bit skeptic, but now I'm all over the world, Roger. You name the country, I've been invited to go there to do this thing about diabetes with my slides given to me by the National Health Service and some slides from Diabetes UK as well. Because I started with Diabetes UK, but I'm now with the National Health Service, Birmingham and Solihull Integrated Care System. Those are the ones who give me all of this stuff. And I just go out there and spread the message, the health and well being message about living healthily and doing the things right. And in particular, Roger, Black people, I'll say loud and clear, they need to wake up, they need to smell the roses or smell the coffee. Because if we don't take care of ourselves, that's what, and you will remember we just gone through COVID-19 and the coronavirus. That impacted and affected Black people more than any other ethnic group. And that was to do especially with our bodies being immune, our immune system being compromised. Because certain foods and not doing any physical activity and eating. My grandmother said too much of one thing is good for nothing. That was her take in the day when I was growing up. And don't get me wrong, we need to eat carbohydrates because that's the source of energy, starchy foods. But it has to be in moderation. And you know the food in the Caribbean, especially in Jamaica, is very lovely. And everybody's
Right.
eating this olive yam and cassava and festival and fried dumpling and rice and peas and then of course the corned beef and the curried goat and so on. You can't be eating all of these in such large portions. They
So
need to
Tony,
go.
yeah,
Go
sorry.
on.
So Tony, what's one of the what are your biggest challenges you face managing the diabetes? Because it's nice to hear how it started out for you and your knowledge, but at the same time you're a human being. There must be some things that are going on. Some challenges you have managing it.
That's a good question. Let me go back. I'll come back to the challenges. Uh, uh, the 70th anniversary of the NHS, they had me on a BBC television live from the Queen Elizabeth Hospital here in Birmingham. The first question the interviewer asked me was, "So, Mr. Kelly, you're a diabetes sufferer." And I had to turn it around and say, "No, no, 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 no. You got that completely wrong. I'm not a diabetes sufferer. I am living with this medical condition. I am managing and controlling it. So don't call me a diabetes sufferer. Yes, there are people out there who suffer from it. But that brings me right back to your question. I personally, I'll be honest with you, I don't have any challenges because I was disciplined from day one that I'm not going to go down the route of the blindness, the heart attacks, the strokes, the lower limb amputations, the gone too soon. So I made the lifestyle changes, which I alluded to earlier on, and made sure to eat healthily, to do physical activity, and have maintained that. Every year I have to go to my diabetic nurse for my checkup. And she says to me, and the doctor says to me, "You're good to go for another year," which is why people said, "Clone Tony Kelly." You can have so many Tony Kellys running around, by the way, but people say, "This guy leads by example." It's called pro social modeling. I don't just talk the talk, I also walk the walk. So my only challenge is getting organizations out there to invite me to places, to take me on board, because I come across some healthcare professionals who keep saying to me in one country in particular, they said to me, "Well, you're not medically qualified, so we can't use you." And I say to them, use the patient expert, but alongside the patient expert, bring the medical person if there are any questions from the medical that they want to ask, then there's somebody to that. But there's some people who have this thing about, oh, I'm Professor so and so, I'm Doctor so and so, I'm medically qualified. That doesn't necessarily mean you're best able to get through to the patients and to the community. And
Agreed.
that's
Agreed.
exactly how I am seeing people. I'm not bigging myself up. People say, Tony, we get you. We understand you. You're sharing your lived experience, your knowledge, your lived reality of being with this condition, managing it and controlling it. You're far better doing it with us than us hearing from a doctor who's just going to come from the medical model and go down the route of medication. I'm not saying some people don't have to be on medication, yes, but sometimes, Roger, medication and drugs mask the underlying problems. And I'm into social prescribing where you get up and you do things like, I'll tell you some of the things I do. I do Pilates every week for years, every single week. I do yoga, which is relaxation. I go to badminton with my cousin weekly. I do acrobics, where I'm going in the water and going against the flow of the water to the music. 3 years ago, I saw an article that Linford Christie learned to swim. Back in Jamaica, my grandmother said, you're not going to the river or you're not going to the beach, you will drown. So Tony Kelly has never learned to swim. But when I found out that Linford Christie did at his stage in life, and he does open water swimming, I said, if it's good enough for Linford Christie, it's good enough for Tony Kelly. So I've learned to swim and I've moved from beginners to intermediate. And just recently they said, you become so good, we're going to put you in the advanced class. So I have an issue when I go up there, and these black women in particular. Oh, Tony, the chlorine, and the hair, the chlorine in my hair. One day, if you learn to swim, you might end up saving your child's life, your niece, your nephew, your godson or goddaughter's life. So, and then this myth about, there's this myth around, Roger, that black people can't swim. Tony Kelly can swim, and Linford Christie can swim. So there are two people who can swim. Oh,
That's
we'll
right.
sing.
Two
We'll
of you.
sing. Huh? So are we. And there's
Two of you.
several. My daughter, from age 4, we taught our daughter to swim. So she's just like a fish now in the water. But I'm wanting people, it doesn't have to be swimming. It can be fast-paced walking. Climbing the stairs is physical activity. Mowing the lawn, cleaning the windows, skipping, getting the kids, Roger, to put down the mobile phone and the Kindle and the PlayStation and the computer and go there and enjoy the fresh air. Listen, Roger, I used to have to walk 2 miles to school in Whitehall, St. Thomas, Jamaica, and 2 miles back. Here in Britain, you see 6 kids packed in a car for the school run. And Roger, they're only going half a mile down the road.
That's right. That's
Your
right.
feet were made for walking. That's what God gave you your feet for. And I
Tony,
don't, yep,
Tony, you are very motivated, very, very motivated,
thank you.
bordering on special. But remember, not everybody
I
is
accept that.
is
I
like
accept
that.
that. I accept
And
that,
what
yeah.
I want to
And
know
you
from
use
you
the
is how
word
do you stay
motivate.
motivated to maintain your regime? Because it is, just to pick up yourself and say, boy, I'm gonna learn to swim. I'm gonna
Yes.
become a swimmer. I want to do Pilates. Some people, when they, one of the T where you mentioned was the tired.
Tired.
How do you get off the couch?
Coach.
Sorry, the settee. How do you
Yes.
get off the couch? And that may I
Yeah.
ask you because, and
Yes.
especially if you're weighty as well.
Yes. My advice to people when I do these events, the 150 on average events I do per year, I say to them, I'm motivated because I saw the suffering in St. Thomas, Whitehall, St. Thomas. Try and do it in a group so you all enable and empower and motivate yourselves. A lot of people call me Mr. Motivator the second. You remember Mr. Motivator here in Britain, Derek Evans, who had,
Yes,
I
sir.
don't know
Yes,
if you were
sir.
here then, with the different colored socks and the lycra. Well, I don't have the different colored socks and the lycra, but I know if I don't do these things, then the complications are going to come my way. But others have to try and do it within a group. Form a walking club where 4 or 5 of you decide, okay, we're going to go walk once a week or so on. Or start playing whatever sport you fancy, squash or whatever it might be that takes your fancy. But you have to do it. If you try and do it on your own, you'll do it for about a week and then you'll just give up. They say, oh, no, no, no. But if you're in a group with others, they'll egg you on, they'll G you up, they'll motivate you. They say, come on, let's go do some walking up that hill, that steep gradient. And they say, okay, let's wait for you at the other station further up while you take your little time. Because some will be faster walkers than others. Because when I lived in Jamaica, I was into track and field athletics. Even before Usain Bolt was born, I ran for high school and youth club and micro teachers college in the national stadium, 400, 800, and 1500. But coming to cold England, as you know, Roger, I thought, oh my God, it's too cold. And I stopped doing all of this physical activity and started then piling on the pounds. And that was one of the contributing factors. It's cold out there, it's wet, it's miserable. And but when the diabetes came my way, I decided, no, I am going to make the effort. So I have full gym membership, all-inclusive gym membership. I go to the gym whenever I want. Not everybody will want to go to the gym. There are other forms of physical activity, as I mentioned earlier, that one can do to keep mind, body, and soul ticking over. And I'll give you one classic example that I give in my talks. When I came to England 1979, we only had three channels: BBC One, you will remember it, BBC Two, and ITV. Every time, Roger, you wanted to change a channel, you got off your proverbial and you went over and changed the channel. Now there's over 100 channels. And this is the more the what you call it, the remote control. Beep, 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 beep. And all people get now, 99% of people get physical activity in this and this. And I give them a piece of good advice. And they laugh when I say it. I say, you know what you do for me? Hide the remote control, or put dead batteries in it, or take out the batteries. Simple. And if you within an hour have to get up 4 or 5 times to go and change the channel, turn it off, or put the volume up and down, you've done some movement. You've allowed the blood to circulate around the heart and around the rest of the body. And then on top of that, I don't know about where you are there in America, but over here, everybody has these two devices, Alexa and Siri. Alexa, turn off the light. Alexa, open the curtain. Alexa, close the window. Siri, do this, do that. Were we born in an age when we had remote control taking over our whole lives? Get off your proverbial and go and turn off the light. Open the curtains, close the curtains, turn on the radio. We've become such a sedentary and, as you rightly said, couch potato society. We're not doing enough physical activity. And that's the essence of the message I'm trying to get out there to people. Some people said, Tony, well, I'm immobile, I'm disabled, I'm not as sprightly on my feet. I say, even in the comfort of your home, you don't have to get dumbbells like Arnold Schwarzenegger or the Incredible Hulk. You can get two empty plastic bottles filled with water or cans of baked beans. And all you're doing is this, to whether to calypso or to one love Bob Marley or whatever takes your fancy. So when next I see you, Roger, your biceps up here, so they're so big. And I say that to elderly people, you cannot be sitting there for 7, 8, 9 hours falling asleep. And because you ate all this food, you need to burn up the calories. That's the issue why diabetes is so rampant all over the place now, where people are not burning up the calories. So they're leading the sedentary couch potatoes, sit on their proverbial lifestyle, and diabetes comes their way. And let me just explain to you what causes diabetes. We have a 6-inch gland, all of us, in our body, literally here by the belly button or navel string. It's 6 inches in length, and it is called the pancreas. The pancreas makes the hormone insulin. Without insulin, you will die. You cannot survive without insulin. Now, in type 1, and only 8% of people have type 1, the pancreas just packs in all together. Nothing to do with age, ethnicity, weight, size, or anything. That's type 1. So those people with type 1 have to immediately, when they notice the tired toilet, thirsty thinner, slow healing of cuts and wounds, they have to go and see their GP quickly, and they have to be put on insulin, which is an insulin pen which they inject 3 times a day. And we have to give thanks and praise and credit to Sir Frederick Banting. 102 years ago, in his lab in Canada, he, as a Canadian scientist, along with Charles Best, his French medical student, they noticed a meager dog outside. Ladies and gentlemen, this is all on the internet. They noticed this meager dog. They made up this concoction, insulin, artificial or man made or synthetic insulin. They injected it into the dog, and the dog started to put back weight on again. That was how man made or synthetic or artificial insulin was discovered 102 years ago. So, on the 14th of November, which is World Diabetes Day, it is the actual birthday of Sir Frederick Banting, who discovered the hormone insulin. Now with type 2, and of course it's about 90% of people with diabetes have type 2. It's either hereditary, in my case, or the glands here, the pancreas, is either not making enough insulin, or whatever it is making, it's not doing its job properly. And one of the main things is having too much weight around your midriff. So, for argument's sake, let's say the man's waist size is 44 from the belly button, not from the weight, not from the trouser size. I encourage them, you've got to try and bring it down. Well, all Asian men should aim for 35-inch from the belly button or navel string. White men and black men from the belly button or navel string should aim for 37. But let's say the man's waist size is 44. Realistically, he's not going to bring it down to 37 as a black man or white man. But at least try and bring 2 inches off it or 4 inches off it. Get rid of some of that fat to enable the pancreas to do its job more better. Then also, some people, Roger, who are thin in Jamaica would have said mager. Thin as a rate, slim or skinny, can also develop type 2 diabetes. And some people said to their friends, no, you can't have type 2 diabetes, it's only fat people. I want people, we want to dispel that myth. It is not only fat people, overweight, obese, morbidly obese, mildly obese people who can develop type 2 diabetes. People who are skinny, slim, because the fat can deposit itself, although they're skinny, around the pancreas and the liver and cause them to develop type 2 diabetes. And I'm on this mission, as I rightly said, to get people to take their health seriously. Over here in Britain, we have the National Health Service, which you were well aware of when you lived here. And over here, it's free. When I go to Jamaica and when I go to some of the other countries, every time they have to go and see their GP, they have to pay, and pay. Here in Britain, and men in particular, I have to say to them, come on, stop this foolishness. Go and get your health checkup done. You might drive a Porsche, a Volvo, or BMW. Here in Britain, you have to get it MOT tested yearly for it to be on the road. Now, I'm saying to the people listening to this, your body, given to you by Jah, Jehovah, Allah, whoever you worship, your body is your temple. And it's far more important to you than that piece of junk, the BMW, the Volvo. And some people said to me, Tony, you can't call me Volvo, I'm a BMW, I'm a Porsche junk. You see, at the end of the day, it will rot. Take care of your body and go and get your health checks done yearly. And at this point, I'll also mention very briefly, I'll digress, men in particular. One of the easiest cancers to cure, Roger, you might well know this, the listeners and viewers, some of them might not know, is prostate cancer. And most men having problems with their water work, stoppage of water, whatever they want to call it, choose not to go and get it checked out. If in doubt, check it out is my motto. I get mine, black men, we need to start testing ours from the age of 45 every year without fail. Because prostate cancer, as I said earlier, is one of the easiest cancers to cure if caught early. But I digress, but I thought I'd bring that into the equation because I always do when I do my events out there.
Hey,
But
Tony. Sorry. So, how does your family and friends support you on this journey? That's a question I have for you. And it's important for you to when you said you've had to adjust your eating and stuff, but that's easier said than done. And remember, and I have to say this, you could be judging people by your own high standards. So I'm
Right,
saying people that don't have your level of discipline,
right.
how
Okay.
how can you start cutting out certain things? What are good foods? How can they make the
Okay.
transition? So first address how your family and
Family,
friends,
family.
and then going into that. Thank you.
Family support is crucial. You cannot do it on your own. I mean, if you live within a family in terms of the nuclear family or if you extended family, the family have to be there to assist and help you. If you try to do it on your own, you're going to fall off the wagon and go back to the old habits and so on. It's a lifestyle, it's a discipline, and so the family themselves can't then decide that they're going to eat all of this whole heap of starchy food and so on, and then just prepare for you the fresh fruits and the vegetables and smaller portion sizes. They have to be on that journey with you because the family members, if they're not careful, they too will end up developing, first of all, pre-diabetes or borderline, and then. So it has to be a concerted effort with family and friends supporting you and egging you on and doing the rightful things. And then, apart from that, food, food, glorious food. Um, my father, God bless him, he's gone now. He used to say, "Food is the staff of life, but rum is life itself." And I always spell that in my talks. But I want people to go for more fresh fruits and vegetables. You will have to have some carbohydrates on your plate because starchy food gives you energy. But it cannot be, for instance, Roger, I don't know when last you've been to Jamaica, but in the years that we've been, and we go fairly often, when I first went out there after we came back to England, Hellshire, and everybody's eating this thing called festival. And I tasted the thing and I spat it out. I said, "What the hell is this?" They saw it used to be fried dumpling, but they put sugar in it. Ladies and gentlemen, what the dickens you're putting sugar in fried dumpling, which is already such a lovely a staple product that we have in Jamaica or the Caribbean. In some islands they call it bakes, some islands Johnny cake, and some islands it's fried dumpling. So that's a first start. You have to cut down on your sugar consumption. You also have to cut down on the amount of rice you're having. The portion of rice that one eats on their dinner plate should fit comfortably in the palm of one's hand. And some people say to me, "But Tony, me is a big man or a big woman that not going to go to me eye teeth. Can we go real Jamaican on some of them?" And I say, "Well, listen, the more rice you eat, it's the more starchy food you're having, which breaks down all carbohydrates. Remember this, folk, break down into your body into blood glucose or blood sugar. So the rices you should aim to eat more than any others. If you want to go on the Diabetes UK website, it says it there. Brown rice, wild rice, and I spell that out because some people think I say white. WILD rice. So brown rice, wild rice. And another rice which you can have, which is on the Diabetes UK website, is basmati rice, whether white or brown. I'm not saying you can't have the other rices as well, but the ones, the really good rices for you are those. And you've got to go for your vegetables. You've got to go.
By the
You know,
way,
it's great.
I'm glad you said basmati rice because I'm a big rice eater. I'll eat rice. I could eat rice at every meal if I could. I'm so glad you said basmati because I needed to get
Basmati.
out. I needed to get out the clause there because I was really worried, really
Right.
worried.
Okay. All right. But as a child growing up, my grandmother, she used to sit me down at the dinner table, eat your vegetables. And I was very cheeky with her. I would say, "Listen, vegetables is for guinea pigs and rabbits. Lettuce and salad and tomatoes and carrots and all these things that you'd give to rabbits to eat and guinea pigs. Kale and callaloo and so on, leafy things. And she'd say, susumba, even that, gully beans. And I'd say, "Oh my God," and ladies' fingers, or what they call okra in some places. And I said, "No, I'm not eating it." So she would make me eat it. And so I acquired that taste. So the more vegetables you have. And in the Caribbean, you get a lot of vegetables. I was in Barbados doing these events, and they're saying, but vegetables is expensive in Barbados. And I said, why is it expensive? It's all imported, it comes in. Okay? I said, listen, you have the natural sunshine, you have the lovely rain, you have the arable land. Grow your tomatoes, grow your lettuce, grow your pop grow your pumpkin, grow your callaloo. Start the children from school having their little plot of garden in the school, and then at the back of the house, get them into that habit of starting to grow things that they can then reap, the tomatoes, the peppers, the sweet peppers, and so on. So that in itself is it. I am not saying people can't have a treat now and again, like your ice cream or your donut or or your cream cake or your nice Christmas pudding or Easter bun or so on. But that can't be every day. And this is the problem with some people. Day in, day out, you see them. Here in Britain, you see the children going home from school age 13, 14, 15. Every day a bag of chips. Or if it's not chips, it's kebab. Or if it's not kebab, it's pizza. So by the time they get home, Roger, they are already full, and whatever meals were prepared for them at home, they don't bother to have it. Wholesome meals that were prepared by mom and dad or whoever they live with. Um, so we've got to look at cutting down on what I call junk food. In some places here, you'll probably remember when you were in Tottenham, might be even more so now. In areas like Handsworth, Lascelles, Nechells, Aston, Sparkill, Sparkbrook here in Birmingham, every second shop you pass in those areas is a fast food takeaway or junk food. I call it junk food. And I'm saying to people, you have got to try and learn to cook. I couldn't cook to save my life. Went to high school, went to university, couldn't even boil an egg. And in 2008, my daughter said, this has to stop. Because she would come home, or my wife would come home to do the cooking, and she gave me 15 Caribbean cookery classes, all the way from where we live. I had to go over to Boldmere in Sutton Coldfield to learn to cook Caribbean food. And just ask the viewers now, they can answer the question, who do they think is the best cook now in the Kelly household? And remember, most of the best chefs you see on television, what gender are they? Most of them are men. So this issue of can't cook, won't cook. No, 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 no. And then you see on the weekend, this is
Wait
one
there,
tip I
Tony.
make.
Tony, you can't pass over that, Why are men emerging as better cooks, or the people them that are cooking mostly?
Well, the ones who are the chefs and own the top restaurants here within Britain and so on, they've taken that out as a profession, as a career, and what have you. And some of them have been taught at an early age by probably their parents or their grandparents. There's this issue about, if men are seen in the kitchen, it's not macho, it's not manly, it's being sissy, this, that, and the other. Can't cook, won't cook. And I'm saying one day these same boys will have to fly away from the nest and go and fend for themselves. If they haven't learned to cook, that's why they just gravitate towards the junk food and the fast food or whatever you want to call it. And what used to happen back in the day, Roger, especially in Jamaica, at primary school and even at high school, boys had to do woodwork and auto mechanics. The girls did sewing and baking and home economics and that sort of thing. Roger, that gender divide has to stop. Boys and girls must be able to do both things, so that I am able then to sew a button if or zip up, do a zip on my thing, or do the ironing or so on. We can't have this gender divide, and that's part of the problem. And I'm saying, let's on a weekend say, um, everybody's come home on a weekend. You see, on a Saturday and a Sunday, I'm saying to viewers, prepare 3 or 4 meals that you can put in the fridge or freezer. So on the way home from work, you're as tired as ever, but you're able to then say, hey, I'm not going to stop at the chippy or the takeaway or the Chinese or the kebab or the KFC or the McDonald's or wherever it is. I have something which we had cooked in the weekend, on the weekend. I'm going to go home. And that's wholesome food, because you know how much sugar you put in it, how much salt, how much flour. And of course the whole heap of saturated oil that they put in a lot of these junk foods. Not doing your putting all of that stuff in your body day in, day out. Which is why now, not just in Britain, but worldwide, when I was growing up, diabetes was an old person's condition. Young people never had diabetes, trust me. Now, you see the kids age 15, 16, 17, 18 being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And that's due to unhealthy eating and not doing sedentary lifestyle, not being physically active at all. They don't play any sport. They don't go out and do any cricket or swimming or running or what have you. And all they run is the Game Boy and the PlayStation and the Kindle, and not doing any physical activity to keep mind, body, and soul ticking over. And I'm
Tony.
on a mission to get people to do that, to be more
So,
active.
so Tony, let me pivot a little bit.
Yeah.
So, mentally, how are you? You know, as far as day to day living, how do you keep your spirits up? Someone that's recently diagnosed, what are the things? And remember, I have to get you to answer this not in your Superman mode.
Right,
We're
right. Yes,
talking
people do call
about
me Superman.
the
Yes.
normal guy, just
Yeah.
been diagnosed. I want to know how you manage day to day mentally, yeah?
Yes.
Because there has to be things where you sit down and whether it's pain, something's going on in your head. How do you mentally
Right.
get over it? And I need to
Okay.
know the fat guy or the guy on the couch or the person on the couch or the slim person on the couch that's just been diagnosed. What advice have you got for them?
We have a double garage at home, and if people want to send me their address, I constantly, and the NHS give me the stamps, newly diagnosed diabetes, movement. There's so many different leaflets and booklets that I have given to me by Diabetes UK, and one of there is newly diagnosed. And I try to explain to people who have been newly diagnosed, listen, it's not the end of the world. You have your whole life ahead of you. You're going to have to try your best to make the changes now and start thinking. Habits are easy to make, yes, but very hard to break. And you've been in a habit of eating and eating late at night and eating all the junk food and so on. You're going to have to now look at how am I going to eat a more healthy, well balanced diet, and with the help of your family, turn it around so that you don't end up, because not everybody with diabetes goes on medication, whether it be we mentioned the insulin, and some people go on the drug metformin. Some people manage, not just like myself but others are out there disciplining themselves. They have a stationary bike at home and they pedal the bike, or they go for fast paced walking, or they take up extra hobbies. Over here in Britain, we have something called social prescribing, which is done at your GP. You're asked to see the social prescriber, who is not a GP, but that person takes you through, what do you fancy? Do you fancy an allotment where you can go and start planting things and getting fit? Or do you fancy Zumba, or do you fancy going to the gym, or whatever it is? And out of the GP's budget, that's why it's called social prescribing. So getting away from the whole issue of doling out pills, 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 more medication, big pharma. So your starting point is, yes, because some people, when they first get diagnosed, some go through bouts of depression. That's a fact. That some people think, oh my God, and it's going to be the end of the world. No, you have to pick yourself up, dust yourself down, and say, okay, I'm going to live with this condition, and try my best to manage it and control it with the support of my networks. Then there are diabetes support groups out there that you can also go to. And of course, you keep your appointments with your diabetic nurse, who will want to check your feet. You have to go and check your eyes. I don't wear glasses at all, a perfect vision, but I have to go and get my eyes tested once a year at the optician, who puts drops in the eyes. And I have friends of mine who are diabetes type 2 and they don't go at all. But they put the drops in my eyes, they send them off to the clinic or the lab, and it comes back saying, Mr. Kelly, there's nothing forming at the back of your eyes, because there's something called diabetic retinopathy screening. And that is basically the retina diabetes eye screening. If you don't take care of your eyes, you start getting blurred vision. And I mentioned the 4 countries in the Commonwealth where blindness from diabetes is rampant: Dominica, Belize, St. Lucia, and Jamaica. People have this view: oh, I'm in my 50s, Roger, 60s or 70s, and I'm getting blurred vision. I can't see the small print. I can't see what's on the television. It's because I'm getting old. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm begging you, it's nothing to do with old age. It is a diabetes having its wicked way at the back of your eyes, causing you to have blurred vision. And if it's not checked in time, you will go blind. And some people said to me, Tony, I wear glasses. And I went to my optician, and my optician said, I don't like what I see forming at the back of the eyes. And the optician says, because the optician cannot diagnose your diabetes, you need to understand it, has to be the GP. And the optician will say to them, go and see your GP for a diabetes blood test. And they don't bother to go. And I think, hang on here, you're in Britain, it's free. It's how do you motivate people? And this is why I'm out there. I'm conscious. I'm out there doing this thing, not just relying on the National Health Service, healthcare professionals. There are other ambassadors and activists out there trying to get people to understand. I have my number. People call me, different from our other landline, and I'll say, and they will say, "Oh, this is happening. That is happening." And I make sure telling them, listen, my health disclaimer, I'm not a healthcare professional, but I think you need to go and see your GP and get properly diagnosed as to what's going on. Because even when I see them at events and they will say, Tony, well, I'm having this pain here and that pain there, I say, even if a doctor was here, they wouldn't be able to diagnose your pain as to what's causing it. You'd have to have blood tests done or go under the scanner or have an x-ray done or so on. So I have to keep reinforcing that. But it's how do you bring people on, especially when they've newly been diagnosed, by going into a support group, having the family dynamics, the family networks, calling on people who have been through it and can engage them and so on. And yes, I'm the exception to the rule. You are right, Roger, that I am Superman, so to speak. And I mention the word Superman in most of my talks because if I go into the city center and have to go up to the 20th block of flats, Roger, if you see me in a lift or elevator or escalator, you have permission to slap me. I don't do lifts, elevators, or escalators. My feet were made for walking. Not everybody will be able to do that. Some will have mobility issues and disability and have to use the lift, the escalator, elevator. But I walk because the more walking you're doing, the more physical activity, you're burning up the calories and allowing this organ, the pancreas, to do what it should be doing naturally. And that's the major issue there, where people are just sitting down and just having a nice time and not getting physically active. Because, Roger, we're in the mango season now. I know Hurricane Beryl has wiped off all the mangoes in Jamaica, but this time of the year, the mangoes come in live and direct from Jamaica, and I will buy a big box of mango because in St. Thomas, where I grew up, we had a lot of mango. So I love mango, especially Julie. Very expensive, but I buy them. And my GP has given me permission to eat 5 or 6 mangoes at a time. But ladies and gentlemen, it's natural sugar. It's called fructose. You cannot be sitting down there eating 5 or 6 or 7 mangoes at a time and not going afterwards and burning up the calories. But my doctor says you walk everywhere, you do Zumba. I do Zumba, by the way, I didn't mention that. Pilates, aquarobics, badminton, swimming, yoga, and you climb the stairs, you do everything. You're like a madam, you don't keep still for long. So you will never put on weight. So I have the permission from my GP to eat 6, 7 mangoes at a time. But the average person cannot eat so many mangoes because it is fructose or natural sugar. You will pile on the calories.
It's funny you say that. When I talk to my brothers
Mm-hmm.
and we talk about health and issues and even diet and stuff like that,
Right.
I
Mm-hmm.
have there's a tendency for so we have the yearly checkups
Mm-hmm.
in the
They live in
US
the
now.
States, do they?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's not everybody. I think it's a little bit socioeconomic as well, and we have to
Right.
admit that is an issue, especially when you have to pay
Mm-hmm.
for your healthcare. And every
Yeah.
year on your birthday, you do your blood test.
Mm-hmm.
You make sure
Cholesterol.
you get all the key performance indicators
Mm-hmm.
from your doctors. You do,
Mm-hmm.
especially the PSA for your prostate.
Mm-hmm.
You make sure that stays
Mm-hmm.
steady. You make them
Mm-hmm.
do the physical examination. But what I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to talk to you about and ask you, what is it about? Is it, and I want to ask you, do you think it's a black man thing where we hide our health, hide and don't want to talk about our symptoms,
It's not
don't
just black
talk
men.
about these things?
It's a gender thing. Men are in denial. Men don't want to talk about health issues, about showing their emotions, showing their feelings. Roger, I was one of those men. When I went for my diabetes and was found that I had it, they looked up on the screen and they said, "Do you realize up to that point you hadn't been down to this surgery for 8, 9 years? It's a man thing. As I said earlier, the woman will go get her check at the twitch and ache, pain, or so on. Men go and play rum, run bar, dominoes, cricket, football, anything about health, which is why I'm out there. I go to a lot of men's groups and I talk to them and they say, and a lot of them said to me, Tony, we love being in these men's groups because we can get ideas and oh, I didn't know that man was going through that, or they feel a bit uncomfortable talking about these issues when women are around, which is why I agitate and say form men only groups so you can talk about the manly issues that you want to talk about, and then people say, oh, and I had that same problem but I never thought of it. Now I've come to this group and I hear 2 3 men saying the same thing,
Well, I run around with a group here, and when I say, and it's not a men's group, I'm just saying my circle, and my
right.
circle may have 5 or 6 men, and
And
some
you talk
we
about
speak,
health.
we speak about everything. We're friends, and we speak about everything. So if it's
Brilliant.
someone is drinking too much, we talk about erectile dysfunction, we talk about
Function. Hmm.
Cialis, we talk about
Hmm.
Viagra, we talk about
Hmm.
a tort,
Hmm.
anything, nothing is,
Nothing is
you
off
know, at this,
limits.
you're 59 years, well, I'm 59 years old, and at this
Hmm.
stage in my life, I don't want to hear about your BMW and your 15 bedroom house in Treasure
Hmm.
Beach
Hmm.
in Jamaica.
Hmm.
No interest. I want
Hmm.
to know how you
Health.
keep your blood pressure down. How is
No.
your blood pressure kept down naturally? What
Cholesterol.
kind of,
Cholesterol.
these are the sort of things I'm interested in. But
Hmm.
I notice, and I've noticed this, especially when I talk to my friends in Jamaica. When you talk to
Hmm.
them about a certain thing, why I mean I have them the problem there? What do you mean you don't have these problems? You're nearly 60 years old. Of course you do. Stop lying. You know what I mean? But
That means you haven't been to the GP to know that
definitely,
they do have them, but
yeah,
they're in denial. That's
yeah,
what you call in denial.
yeah.
Total
And then when you
denial.
and when you talk to someone about getting their prostate checked and whatever,
Oh, no,
they
no,
want to
no.
change it. They
Digital.
want to change the topic.
Stop it.
They want to
Hmm.
change the topic, and you have to make sure that the
Persistent.
men in your life man up and say, no, man. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
You
Yes.
have to get your
Yes.
prostate check.
Yes.
So let me
Because
ask you
sometimes you're
this,
not
Tony.
good.
What are the key performance indicators in the blood work? Because, and I'm just going to let you know, being a techie myself, I have my blood work for the last probably 15 years. So I know all the numbers, them the cholesterol numbers,
Right.
PSA. What is the key ones, the
Well,
blood
well,
sugars?
I tend not to give out numbers because each person will differ. So it's when they go in to see the GP and they get the results and they say the doctor will say your PSA is elevated or raised from what it should be. And for each individual, raised might be a figure of 6 for one, but for another person might be a figure of 8. So I'm not going to
It's
give
all
a hard
relative.
figure. It's all relative. But I say go and get the checks done. And that gives you the sense of satisfaction. And ladies, especially listening to this, if you notice that your man is getting up in the night and him taking half an hour to come back from the loo, either having stoppage of water or weak bladder flow, or it's not coming as it should under, and then suddenly you notice they get up 2 hours later, the telltale signs are there. And even if them don't want to own up to it, the ladies in their life must say, come on, I am making an appointment for you to go and see your GP tomorrow because this has been going on for 2 3 months now.
Or she,
And,
or
and
she can just get him some good life insurance.
I like that one. I like that
Yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You
But
know. So what is a key performance indicator for diabetes? And I'm not talking about the number itself, but what are the
right.
figures that you need to be
Well,
looking at?
as I say again, I'm not talking about figures, but the classic symptoms which I mentioned, and sometimes bear this in mind. Sometimes, and that's one of the slides I show, and I make people read that out. Sometimes there are no symptoms at all that you have diabetes, none at
Wow.
all. But the classic symptoms are T for tired, T for toilet, T for thirsty, T for thinner, plus two others: blurred vision and slow healing of cuts and wounds. The guy who taught me at the gym how to use the weights and so on, Mr. Muscle, he was really big and strapping and so on. I hadn't seen him for a while. This is a true story, Roger, true as night follows day. And I saw his brother once, because I have a lot of these t-shirts and the hoodies to match. And I saw his brother once at Six Ways Aston, and he said to me, "You're Mr. Diabetes, aren't you?" I say, "Yes." He says, "Go and look for my brother in Dudley Road Hospital." Some call it Dudley Road, some call it City Hospital. It's in Birmingham here. I said, "What's the matter with him?" He said, "I'm not going to tell you. Go and look for him." I went to look for his brother. This is a true story. The brother was at his home on the Wolverhampton Road South, and a glass bottle fell on the floor, and he used a dustpan and brush and scraped it all up with his son. A splinter was left on the floor. The splinter went into his big toe, and he was there, typical of what most men would do, using Dettol and antiseptic to try and get this toe better. Instead of the toe getting better, it got worse. And proper what we in the Caribbean would have say, stinking toe, smell and the pus and everything and swelling. And eventually, somebody said to him, "Man, you have to go see a GP. This toe can't be carrying on like this." This was going into weeks. He did go down to the GP surgery. The GP took one look at him and said, "Mm-mm, Dudley Road, City Hospital, you have to go." Roger, they chopped off his big toe because gangrene or septicemia, one or the other, had set into the big toe. Sadly, by then it had spread to his other four toes. They chopped off his other four toes. Sadly, it didn't end there. It had spread up to just below his knee. They chopped off his knee, his leg just below the knee, and he had to be fitted with a prosthetic limb. You know what set in? Depression. He drew all, he wouldn't go outside at all. He drew all the curtains and the blinds and everything in his house, and was there. And I used to get in touch with him when I heard about it. And I said, "Listen, you've lost a leg. You haven't lost your life. Try and get over this." And I'll tell you something, you're in the States. And if people want to look it up, it's a fact. Because I remember sending it just last week to somebody doing a PhD. Black people in the States with ulcers and sores because they're not taking care of their sore feet, their feet, ulcers and sores coming to the equation, they are three times more likely, and some people are saying, well, this must be down to racism, to have their feet amputated. There's a big study done in the States about it. Look it up. And now they're realizing, hang on, a lot of these people did not need to have their toes and feet and their whole leg amputated because of sores that they had developed and ulcers. Um, and it's the medical system there in the States which has done this. And people have suddenly got wise to it and said, no, why are you doing this more to black people, but white people you're giving them the necessary treatment and you're bandaging them up and telling them and looking after their feet and dressing it and so on. So that's also part of the racism that's out there, Roger. It's on the website. Just look up amputations, levels of amputations in the States, and you will see the alarming number of black people who immediately they're going legs chopped off, toes chopped off, unnecessarily. I hasten to add, it's a very
Tony,
important document on the website about the American situation, and that I bring to your attention.
and I really appreciate that, Tony. What I wanted to just to be balanced because you use the word racism here, you know, and
Right.
we can have a whole different conversation about it. But remember, in the UK, you have a national health system, yeah. In the USA, and this is going to be a funny argument, but I'm a bit of a provocateur, so you're going to get to
Mm-hmm.
find that out about me. So,
Mm-hmm.
yes, racism is in effect and about and happens, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes a lot of these problems are socioeconomic.
Yes,
And
I agree.
when you reach a stage wherein you're going to get certain sorts of treatment, and
Mm-hmm.
they realize that you don't have the funds by
To
virtue
eat.
of your
Mm-hmm.
socioeconomic
Economic status.
status. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of
Mm-hmm.
times we use the term race, but it's
Mm-hmm.
poor. The fact of the
Mm-hmm.
matter is, a lot of us need to get out of the quote
The poverty
unquote.
trap.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we're saying it's poor. There was a case I was talking to someone yesterday, and they were talking about somebody needed either a liver or a kidney or whatever, and they failed the requirements to get
Mm-hmm.
the needed organ, not
Mm-hmm.
because they didn't need it, but they knew that that
Mm-hmm.
person couldn't afford to pay for the ongoing drugs that
Mm-hmm.
was needed to maintain this organ in their body. And they
Oh,
ended
okay.
up not giving it to them, if you understand what I'm trying to say.
All right, but that is why, and we give credit to Obama. He brought in, and the ones, the richer ones, weren't in favor of it. The Obamacare, you had Medicaid and the two, the difference between the two. The Obamacare Act came into being whereby people who were from impoverished or very poor backgrounds and were unable to pay for medication. And whenever we travel to the States, I make sure I have insurance, because I know if I fall ill in the States and end up in a hospital, that is some whole heap of money we have to pay. But in the
Wait,
poor,
Tony. You
mhm.
set your mouth and say that, and you can go to Jamaica, go get sick. I heard if you're in Westmoreland, you don't want to go to Savlama Hospital. So,
Yeah, no, no, that is true. Yes, and it is the same issues in Jamaica there, where the treatment for people who have to go to the public hospitals is so. That is why a lot of people who would want to retire back to Jamaica say no, and they actually come back ever so often for their checkups here in England, because the healthcare in the public hospital arena in Jamaica, and I'm not telling tales out of school here, it's poor. If you have money and go privately, trust me, the healthcare there is much, much better.
money make
But
the mayor gallop, then say.
money talks. Money
Yep.
talks. Just like in the States, it's the haves and have-nots, and that's
Yes.
one of the issues there, which is why Obamacare was brought in to alleviate the suffering of people who have been can't get the medication or can't afford it, or this, that, and the other. But also part of the issue is um, over here they talk about, and I'll tell you for now, nothing, hard to reach communities. You see about 24 pages on the internet, Roger, of hard to reach communities. When I go to these big events all over the country, the professors, most of them white professors or white consultants or white doctors, always in their spiel talk about hard to reach communities. And when they finish, my hand is the first to go up. And they say, excuse me, could you tell us who are the hard to reach communities? Listen, they're brighter than stadium bulb. The Africans are hard to reach, the Caribbeans, the South Asians, the white working class. I have a ready-made answer, and I want your people listening to have it as well. Ask them, are these hard to reach communities? Are they on Mars, Jupiter, the rainforest, the jungle, the deep blue sea, the Himalayas? No, we all make up the community. And if anybody is hard to reach, it's you professors and consultants sitting in your ivory tower and sitting in your offices and not coming out and engaging with communities. Because I do 150 community events per year, and knock on gurdwaras, mosques, churches, synagogues, residential homes. I don't find any communities hard to reach. So I find the term patronizing, condescending, and insensitive, and it could be deemed to be racist. If you said instead, historically neglected, historically ignored, historically excluded, marginalized, underrepresented, or underserved communities, I would agree with you. But never call any of us African, Caribbean, South Asian, white working class people hard to reach. No, I'm not having that. If Muhammad can't go to the mountain must go to Muhammad. That's my take. Which is why, Roger, if I be honest with you, you remember something called Marmite when you were in England?
Yes, sir. Spread it on toast.
Right. Well, some people love it and some people can't stand it. Well, some people love Tony Kelly for also my frank, honest, upright approach. Then there's another set of people who say, "Oh my God, I can't take him at
Straight
all."
up, straight up.
But then I also say, don't get me wrong, I'm not Jesus. Jesus was crucified. Jesus was not loved by everybody. Okay, so it's the same principle that you're not you're here to please and try and get the message across to those who have ears to hear. Let
Let
them
them
hear.
hear.
And I come across people who say, Tony, had I not met you, I would not change my life. You've been my motivator. I remember a chap who said to me and he says I can call his name. He said, call me name anytime. His name is Ben Cunningham. He says, one New Year's Eve, you came to Handsworth and you spoke to us on a New Year's Eve. He says, I'll never forget it. And by the time you finished speaking, on New Year's Day, I went and he said he got a stationary bike. He started to do more walk because he had diabetes badly. And then he went to have his bloods done 3 months later. And the doctor said to him, hang on here. Are you sure we sent off for the right bloods? Because everything has come back and I'm going to have to take you off medication. He says, how did you do this? He said, I met a man named Tony Kelly. And when he says jump, you say how high. And
Right,
he
right.
tells me that story ever so often. And that's what I'm about, trying to get the message across to people. Um, it doesn't necessarily have to be from the healthcare professionals. Us as patient experts, lived experience, lived reality. We have a point to play, which is why I get so angry when I go to places and they say, there's a church not far from us, and 3 times I've been in touch with them, and they say, and finally they responded, we don't need you, and I have the email here still, to come and do diabetes talks for us. We have enough doctors in the congregation. I thought, excuse me? Eh? So I move on. I move on to
Hey, Tony,
where I'm at.
you don't need to tell me about the church.
That's for
Tony,
another time.
we're up on the hour. We're up on the hour
Yes.
now. So
Oh my gosh,
I
the time
have
has
my
flown
last
by.
question for you. What is there? Are there any myths about diabetes that you would like to debunk here and now, Mr. Tony Kelly, the motivator?
Oh my God, you probably have seen because I do myths and misconceptions. I have 14 of them, myths and misconceptions. First of all, the myth that's around that it's only a touch of sugar, we got to get rid of that. The myth that it's only old people can get it, we got to get rid of that. There's another myth about if you prick your finger during the fasting period of Ramadan, you have broken the fast. Prick your finger, that when I go into the Islamic and Muslim community, I have to tell them that that is not the case. Another myth is if you have diabetes, you won't be able to find a husband and you won't be able to have any children. I have to dispel that myth as well. Another myth is, oh, herbal remedies. Just rely on herbal remedies. Don't get me wrong. When I was growing up in Jamaica, Roger, I never took Cafanol, Panadol, Fensic, paracetamol, ibuprofen, all those sort of things. If anything was wrong with me, my grandmother sent me go get the soursop leaf or the tree of life or whatever the leaf was. And when she done boil it up and rub me, my fever gone and I'm ready to go to school the next day. So I'm not going to sit here and dismiss herbal remedies. But alongside the herbal remedies, you need to be mindful that there are going to be occasions where you will end up having to be on other remedies, i.e., pharmaceutical, etc. But that should be the last resort. What tends to happen here in Britain is from the moment somebody is diagnosed, immediately they want to go down the prescription route. Big pharma, big pharma, big pharma. And I'm saying no, enable and allow the patient, empower them to make the changes, to do some more physical activity, to come back and see you in 3 months' time and see how much weight they've lost, how they've toned up. Has their cholesterol level gone down? Has their blood pressure gone down? Has their blood glucose levels gone down? Um, so there are lots of myths out there. I've mentioned some. There's quite a few more. But in particular, I think you're going to come on to it. I'm doing an event on the 25th of August, and all these myths and misconceptions, because that's what they will be there in terms of the slides, showing each and every one of them, and I will be dispelling them in that session that I'm doing on Sunday, the
Tony,
25th.
my last question for you, sir. And this one is close to my heart, really close to my heart. Can you let my mother know that fasting and prayer does not heal you from diabetes?
Yeah, oh gosh, yes, I have that with the church where they say, "Oh, I don't have diabetes, but if I got it, I'd pray to God for a miracle." And I say, "That's one miracle we'll tell Jesus not to give to you." This whole issue of this the belief in, yes, I'm a Christian as well, firm belief and so on. um you have to still do the things naturally. Yes, some people do intermittent fasting. Yes, that bit I'll accept, that intermittent fasting can, because the less food you're putting in here to impact the pancreas can sometimes be to your advantage. So the fasting bit of it I can accept to a certain extent, but the likes of me tend not to fast because I need to have some substance and nutrients inside my body. But the prayer bit of it, you can't just rely on the power of prayer at all. You, the Lord helps those who help themselves is my strapline or motto. So prayer on its own, no, that doesn't do it for me. And any Christian who keeps on going on down the prayer route and say, I'll still eat all the things that I shouldn't be eating, and ask the Lord, oh Lord, keep diabetes away from me. No, it's gonna come. So
Hey,
I'm glad you touched on that one. That's
hey,
a good
thank you
one.
for that. Hey, Tony, I really appreciate the fact that you spent the time to come on my platform. I really, really
A
enjoy
pleasure.
speaking to you. Diabetes, high blood pressure, there's so much
High
things that are
cholesterol.
marring
Mhm.
us as human beings, and we need to, take a hold of our own health or
Health.
something will happen to us. So I really want to, thank you very much for
You're
coming here, sir.
welcome.
Thank you, thank you. And everybody, remember to like, subscribe, and comment. Tony, if there's any links, just send them over to me, and I'll put them at the bottom of my
Oh, okay,
of
will
my
do.
YouTube.
Will do.
Thank you very much, sir, and you take care of
Thank you.
yourself.
Thank you. Yes, all right. Nice talking to you.
Cool.